course, whatever we called it. My name is Ari. This is my co-presenter, Shelley. So a quick intro to us. Shelley and I work in security at Twilio. I head up our risk, trust, and compliance group. I spent 5 years consulting with Willet. You can find me on the internet over there and over here. Shelley, if you want to do a quick intro?
I'm an incident response security engineer at Twilio. I joined the company about 8 months ago, first job out of college, and you can also find me on the internet.
Awesome. We're going to move on to my favorite section, which is the shameless plug section. We're hiring. Ted over here is our recruiter-in-chief. He's awesome. We're looking for cloud people, we're looking for compliance people, we're looking for awesome people like you all. So if you feel like you would like to do any of these, or you know someone who is looking for a new opportunity, myself, Shelley, and Ted would love to chat with you. Okay, so we're here to talk about consulting skills. Consulting is great. You get to travel to all kinds of interesting places. You learn a ton of stuff. But, unfortunately, sometimes you have to travel to places like the middle of nowhere, New Jersey, which is already the armpit of the country. Sorry for anyone who's from Jersey. And sometimes you get to work with people who you don't actually like. And you also work all the time. So, this talk is set up to walk you through the best parts of consulting so that you, unlike Shelley and I, do not have to work in consulting. Everyone wins. The reason that I want to talk about consulting skills at a security conference is because consulting is all about soft skills. Anyone can learn to code. I also believe that anyone can effectively learn to use soft skills to get shit done. But similar to learning a new technical skill, learning soft skills takes time and it takes practice. Notes are too big for the speaker screen. Okay. Why are we talking about consulting skills though? Soft skills are incredibly important for security professionals. Security is incredibly cross-functional, and we can get nothing done without the input, the buy-in, and the efforts from all of the rest of the teams within your company. So the engineering teams, the finance teams, the HR teams, the product teams, they all have to cooperate with you as a security professional in order to make security work. Okay, just checking my next slide. The way that we're going to do this is, and the reason that I wanted you all to kind of sit a little bit closer, is because we're going to do some activities and we're going to walk through consulting skills as well. So this is, it's not just like a sit and listen, because I find that incredibly boring and I assume that you all do too. So I'm going to hand it over to Shelley to walk through our first activity.
Thanks, Ari. Just to give you all a heads up, we're going to be running through 6 consulting tips today. We're mostly going to be presenting the activities first, so just trust us. We are, even as we lead you blindly into the activities. Without further ado. So imagine yourself in this scenario. You're looking for a tool that pages people for an incident. And the question that I pose to you is, do you build it or do you buy it? Think about that. Now I'm going to throw in a couple of extra pieces of information. And you have to make the build or buy decision again. So, fact number 1, the existing pager products would cost about 5% of your annual revenue. That's a pretty hefty amount. Now do you build it or do you buy it? Kind of think about that in your head. Fact number 2, your company is short-staffed and low on engineers. Do you build it or do you buy it now? Fact 3, the engineering director also wants the pager tool implemented within 3 months. Do you build it or do you buy it? Great. So as you may have noticed, your decision on building or buying the product depended a lot on the information that you had at hand. Taken one at a time, one fact could have made you lean towards building, another fact could have made you lean towards buying. Which is why it's so important for us to be able to take a step back and see the big picture. We have to be able to zoom out, see the big picture, then make the informed decision once you have everything in front of you. So that's tip number one, keep the big picture in mind. As an engineer myself, I've seen this quote ring pretty true. The biggest challenge for many engineers is not the detailed thinking, it's making sure you look at the big picture from time to time. I think this image represents that pretty clearly. Our day-to-day tasks can get pretty hectic. It's easy to get tunnel vision into the tickets you need to fix, the bugs you need to get done, those calls that you need to make. And if you multiply these by 365, there goes your year. It's so important for us to regularly take a step back, again, and to reflect on how our individual day-to-day tasks can affect the people around us, the business, and ourselves in the long run. I'd like to share an example of a time that my team had failed to look at the bigger picture. So this image over here, that was an accurate picture of young Shelley circa 2017. Now imagine each arm representing an alert, or rather a security event. And every time it came in, we would respond and react. Think of it as a phishing email or a foreign login, just some sort of unusual behavior. And the result of this was that we were so overworked and also underperforming. Not good for the business either. So then our team realized that it was time to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, because what we were doing was not sustainable. In the long run, what we needed was a scalable solution that allowed us to respond to multiple events and incidents simultaneously. And that's when we decided to build our own serverless automation platform. And for the sake of this presentation, I'll give it a fake name, called it Magic. So before Magic, that was us. This was us after Magic. And more importantly is the point that Magic only exists today because we were able to take the broader perspective. Moving on to the second activity. I'd like you all to get into groups of 4, if that's possible, just with your neighbors. Here you're 4. Alright, and while you're doing so, please just assign roles. So one person can be alpha, one person will be beta, Charlie, delta, etc.
This looks good.
Alright, cool. Ted, aren't you glad that you joined this talk? Because now you get to participate in everything.
I'm Delta.
The best one. Alright, let's go over some guidelines. Alpha, you committed code that allowed for a SQL injection. Sorry. Beta, you approved Alpha's code. Charlie, you noticed odd behavior in the database a week later. Delta, you're an evil hacker. Ted. Sorry, Shelley. You did a much better job at this time. I'll get there. Okay, so here's a scenario. Delta finds and exploits the SQL injection vulnerability that Alpha committed and that Beta approved. Charlie discovers that Delta gained access to customer data. Let's assume that an incident is created and the necessary steps are taken to remediate it. All right, now can you take 2 minutes to discuss in your groups who caused this incident? Just 2 minutes. Ready, set, go.
We want to. It's a team sport. We all have to. There were no
All right, let's reconvene.
Yeah? Look at that.
So although I'm curious on who you all decided on, did blaming someone solve the issue?
No.
Surprise! Who knew that was coming?
Secondly, did blaming someone allow us to prevent this incident from happening to someone else? Thanks, audience. And this brings us to our second tip. No blaming. Instead of arguing over whose fault it was, we should find constructive ways to move the ball forward and improve processes for the future. At Twilio, we have a tradition of conducting a postmortem for all of our incidents. The postmortem is where everyone involved in the incident gathers at a meeting to do a debrief and reflect on what we could have done better. The goal is to create betterments to prevent similar incidents from happening again. In the postmortem, we use the 5 whys framework to drill down to the root cause. So, for example, we would ask, why was there an incident? 2, why was the customer impacted? And many times, once we find the root cause, we realize that it's a much more broader systemic issue. Let's revisit our scenario and try the 5 whys. Alright, so 1, why was a customer impacted? There was unauthorized access to their data, GDPR. 2, why did we get hacked? Answer, there was a SQL injection vulnerability. 3, why was there a SQL injection vulnerability? Unfortunately, someone committed insecure code. 4, why didn't we catch it? It was approved maybe as an oversight or lack of knowledge about common vulnerabilities. And so we keep going down this 5 whys framework to figure out what the root cause was. And eventually, for this scenario at least, we might figure out that we need a more standardized code review process, or that we need more secure coding training for our developers, or that we need better detection capabilities. In summary, rather than attributing blame, we should find the root cause of the issue and address that instead. And I will now hand over the next strategy to Ari.
Yes. Okay. We're going to do more partner activity. So this time just find one partner. 4 for 4. This should be easy. You're already in groups of 4. You'll also notice that I very inconspicuously put some paper and pencils on the ends of the rows. So in your pair, if you could get 1 piece of paper and 1 pencil, that'd be ideal. Yeah, I bet you didn't even notice that. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. In your group, please take an A and a B. Okay. If you are the B, please turn around so that your back is facing the screen. You can move the chairs. I'm glad that they have movable chairs here. Okay. Here are the rules to the game. We're going to play a sketching game. B's, you just became the sketchers. A's, you were the describers. What I'm going to do is put a picture up on the screen. A's, you're going to describe this picture so hard. Like, the best descriptions you've ever given. Only words. Don't be like going everywhere. Use the words. You're gonna have 3 minutes, and as a team, I want you to reproduce the picture that's on the screen. I'm just gonna flash it because I noticed that there's like a screen in the back. Don't cheat and look at it. So you have like a hot second to look at this picture, describers, and then you're gonna have to describe it so hard. So just pay really, really good attention. Ready?
You got this.
Okay, set, go. Please read. There we go. No, wait, Shelley. Turn it back. Yeah. I forgot that this screen wasn't up there.
Yeah.
Okay. Describers. Please describe the picture to your teammate.
Oh, it's a memory thing.
What else do you want me to change?
Okay, 30 seconds left. Okay, and time. Bees, please turn back around. Shelley, would you be so kind as to put the picture back on the screen? Okay, please raise your hand if your picture looked like this. Okay, ish, yeah?
Ish.
Seem to have some pretty confident people in the back there. Very nice. Okay, so the consulting strategy that I want to talk about here is no surprises. Yes. For some of you, maybe the people in the back, it seemed like you had just an overload of communication in order to be able to draw this picture effectively. But the point was really to hammer home how much you need to talk and how much you need to explain and how much information you need to give in order for someone else to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how it should look at the end. So, yes. A quick example about this, the reason I wanted to include this in this presentation was because of a serious F-up that I made as a young consultant who had no idea what was going on, where I was at a client, I was working with the financial audit team from Deloitte, which is where I used to consult, and the financial audit team, they came to me and they had said, Ari, we're trying to solve this technical problem from the client, we want to bring you in, and I was like, I'm here. You all type with one finger, I'm ready to help you with your technical challenge. And so I called this big meeting, I invited the client, I invited my boss's boss, I invited the whole financial audit team, and I was like, I'm ready to solve this problem, let's go. The big mistake that I made was not communicating. And everyone was surprised at this meeting that they were in this meeting. And so I expected the financial audit team to run the meeting because it was their problem, and the client expected that someone from Deloitte would run the meeting because they were having a problem, and I expected that this would be beautiful and like my boss would give me a superhero cape after, honestly. And instead, we walked out and my boss took me aside in the hallway and was like, Ari, what the fuck was that? And so this is the big lesson. There should be no surprises. We talked a lot about, in the beginning, about security being a cross-functional effort. It is so important to over-communicate what's happening and what all the teams should be doing to support security efforts within a company. With that, let's move on. So I found this quote, and so I wanted to include it in the presentation. And then I realized that if you Google a quote, it just gives you pictures of the same quote with different backgrounds. So I wanted to share that all with you. I think it's beautiful. No surprise. Okay. Hold on, I'm way behind on my slides in the speaker notes. So I forget, this is a great activity. Okay, we're gonna stay in partners. And we're gonna do an activity that improv artists do. It's not stressful. Like, I'm seeing some people on the front here be like, oh shit, why did I come to this talk? It's not stressful at all, it's super fun. Okay. In your groups, sorry, I keep expecting them to be the same. We're gonna talk about a scenario. You're gonna be building a security incident response tool, because we've been talking about them a couple times during our presentation. In your groups, I want you to decide how to structure your Jira board. And if you're not familiar with a Jira board, it's a ticketing solution. If you've never used a ticketing solution, just decide on how you're going to structure the project. The rules. The first person is going to propose an idea. The second person is going to respond with yes, but. And then from there on out, every sentence should start with yes, but something else. We're going to do 2 minutes. I want you to come to a solution on how to organize this project. Set, go. Okay, I lost track of time, but that seems like a good time frame. Okay, we're gonna do, some of you look really disappointed. We're gonna do part 2 of this activity. And it's the same exact conversation, but now all your sentences have to start with yes, and. Set, go. Alright, I think everyone has appropriately structured their project because a minute and a half is all you really need for that. Okay, so the next strategy that we're talking about after this activity is never say no, but don't always say yes.
Yeah.
So I think I heard these people in the front talking through this entire activity and why we were doing it. So thank you for giving me like a lot of material to work with. Yeah, no, that's great. So I think that many of you noticed when you did yes but versus yes and, it was less productive. Everyone felt bad because your ideas were getting shut down. It was terrible. Security, again, I'm going to go back to this, is so collaborative that we cannot be shutting down people's ideas. We can't be telling people to not do things because it's just the littlest bit insecure. But we also can't be like, go do whatever you want, whether or not it's insecure. It's totally fine. What could happen? So, there's this trick around always saying yes, never saying no, but not always saying yes. So continuing to keep the conversation going, continue keeping people involved. And this really is a way to kind of keep people collaborating with the security team. Because if everyone's working against the security team, the company isn't going to be secure. The security team cannot secure a company by itself. It needs everyone, and it needs everyone to be working with them as opposed to against them. Yes. All right. A good example of this that I wanted to share with all of you. One of the things that my team owns at Twilio is performing security due diligence on potential acquisitions. And so we go in, we assess the security of the acquisition, we go back to the business and say, go or no go. The interesting thing about this activity is that we often look at acquiring companies that are much smaller than us and may not have security engineers, may not have people thinking about security, and as a result, their security is often less good than Twilio's. However, we still have to give a go, no go. If we said no to every company that had security that was less good than Twilio's, we would miss out on so many business opportunities, and also the business would no longer invite us to do diligence on acquisitions before they bought them. So what we often say is go, and we need a very large budget. This way everybody wins. The business gets to purchase these companies that will allow us to have a market advantage in certain areas. The stakeholder or the business executive has a great idea of what the return on investment actually will be for an acquisition, and security gets resourced correctly in order to make sure that this acquisition, along with the rest of Twilio, is going to be as secure as we could possibly make it. That leads us to our second to last consulting tip, making people stakeholders. So, for like the 600th time, security is a collaborative effort across the company. Research shows that people are more engaged when they have skin in the game, and when you bring them into decisions, when you bring them into processes, when you make them a part of the process. The head of customer support at Twilio always tells this story, and I think he would be like really mad if he found out that I was telling this story on behalf of him because he's a rough man. But he always tells a story about how he got brought into this call, and we had a customer, and the customer was bullshit at Twilio because his application wasn't working correctly. The customer support rep was trying his or her hardest to debug the issue, to look through the logs, to look at what the customer is doing, to work with the customer and trying to figure out what was going wrong. And it turned out it was something that wasn't Twilio's fault, it was one of our partners, but that's totally fine. Anyhow, customers irate, yelling, berating, like just so mad at the Twilio customer support rep. Head of customer support jumps on the call and says, hey customer, will you help us debug and test the solution to this problem? So I'll time out, nothing has changed. Customer app still is not working. Customer support rep still trying to debug frantically what this is. The problem is still not with Twilio, we still cannot fix it. However, because the customer was now brought into the conversation, brought into the process, brought into fixing the problem, the customer's whole demeanor changed. They now were looking at the logs too. They now were trying to do test, we do communication, so sending test SMS messages and test phone calls to see what was going on and having the customer support rep try and debug them with the customer. And it ended up that they were all collectively able to solve the problem once the demeanor was changed, once the customer was brought in. This particular strategy does not have an activity because this whole presentation has been this strategy. Shelley and I are like super cool and everything, but if we just came up here and talked to you about like a bunch of stuff, it would be fine. But hopefully, getting you all involved made it a little bit better of a presentation, a little bit more meaningful, and brought you into the process as opposed to having you just listen to it and be a passive bystander.
Yeah.
With that, I'm going to hand it over to Shelley to go through our very last consulting strategy. Take it away, Shelley. I'll try and remember to do your slides for you. Okay.
So our last strategy is called just chilling time. Security, for the 700th time, is cross-functional. And
Do you agree?
and we often have to work with different teams. So that's why it's so important for us to build relationships with other teams, to be transparent, and to learn about their pain points so that we can help them, not block them. So just chilling time is essentially just meeting people and learning. You can think of this as coffee chats, beer o'clock, LaCroix time, whatever floats your boat. And a personal just chilling example for me was when I participated in the Twilio Tweak Week. It's our hackathon event. I worked with 4 engineers that I never worked with. And it was quite eye-opening. People were dropping credentials everywhere, on GitHub, on Slack, places where credentials shouldn't be. On the security team, we don't do that. We know better, right? And because we don't do it, no one else at the company does it, right? Anyhow, the point is that it was only because of this chilling time and exposure to other people that I was able to learn about the other practices that other developers were doing. And I was then able to carry this back to the security team, and we then built a tool that finds credentials in GitHub repos. And our last activity for you is to find one person in the room or at this conference to meet up with again after today for coffee, a drink, a chat, whatever works for you. And we'll try to leave you some just chilling time for afterwards. Yeah, my friends, go forth and prosper.
Thank you all so much for coming and hanging out with Shelley and I, and thank you for all coming up here, meeting with each other. Once again, you can find us on the internet, and we would love to have just chilling time with you if you would like that later. Thank you again.
Let's get a hoodie. We got Matt.
Okay, I'm not going to use the mic, but I'm going to be very loud. Oh, yeah. Apparently, we weren't very clear about what the grand prize raffle is, so I'm going to talk about that for 2 seconds before we get our next people on. How many people would love to go to DEF CON? How many people would love to go to DEF CON for free? Oh, yeah. There we go. So we're giving away 5 of those, all expenses trips to DEF CON at the end of the day. If that's something that's of interest to you, please. Yeah, that's not open to presenters or volunteers. Taking off the green shirt now is not going to work. I'm sorry.
No, that's funny. I gotta get a rocker.
Sorry, I'm just like, let me go.
I figured that was good.